Welcome to Cybertron City Podcast, New York City's premier Transformers fan cast, where we celebrate all eras of Transformers except KISS players. My name's Paul, aka Brooklyn Bots on Instagram, and I'm joined by my regular co-host Danny, aka Matrix_Mez on Instagram. Danny, how you doing tonight?
Yes, I'm doing all right. I just got out of work. I'm excited to finally do something other than pretend like I'm working. You know what I mean?
That and also not be drenched. Because today, oh my goodness, we have those like late summer, like just about start of hurricane season drenched fest in Brooklyn. So that was lovely.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
an Amazon return today, and it was just it got
You
nasty.
got rained on. You got rained on before? So
Yep.
I'm getting rained on currently. So I
Yeah,
don't know if you're.
I mean, Staten Island's a little bit downstream from you guys, so you're probably getting the leftovers of what we had about 4 hours ago or so.
Oof. Well, yeah, probably. But I think it's what 3 podcast segments already that it's rained.
Yeah, we're actually quite into this podcast thing now. I think you and I are getting the hang of it. We're 6
Yeah.
episodes deep now.
Episode 6 is crazy. I feel like we've been doing this for like 2 weeks.
Well, exactly. Yeah, we're just we're so adept at it now. It's more like second nature to us. Getting to the news of the week. We didn't have too many things. Just want to shout out Transformers 1 again. We are now less than a month away from that release, which is crazy, considering that we're used to having like at minimum 2 years between Transformers movies and at most like this big honking gap. Especially between Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast, which felt like 2 lifetimes with the pandemic and just changing the guard with presidential administrations. And just like 5 years is a long time for things to happen between films. So that may have been a reason for Rise of the Beast just being like, oh, yeah, this is a Bumblebee sequel. There was a Bumblebee movie before that, just because it's such a big gap between movies. And now we have this like 1 year gap or 1 year and change gap between Rise of the Beast and Transformers 1. But we're going into yet a huge new direction for the franchise. Totally new look, totally different universe. And I feel like with Transformers 1, there's no real ambiguity about whether it's part of the old universe or not. This is clearly meant to be, if not its own standalone thing, definitely the beginning of something new, which I'm on board with. Definitely warming up the designs, but you know what? I've come around. I'm probably going to see it in theater. I'm definitely warming up to it, but just not the best initial taste in my mouth, to be honest with you. But what are your thoughts?
No, you weren't a big fan.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, I was kind of like on that same boat for like I'd say a couple weeks. I wasn't too happy about the whole change in direction. I wasn't happy about going to animation instead of live action, only because I feel like the normies won't go see an animation movie as much as a live action one.
Right.
And I mean, from what I've been hearing, and people who have signed NDAs who have gone to go watch the movie already and got to see an early screening of it, they're saying that it's really good and the best Transformers movie we've gotten since the '86 movie, which is good to hear. But I'm not trying to have those same expectations going into this movie.
Me neither. I'm just going in completely neutral. Whatever happens. There's a few voice actors that I'm like, really? We have this person as a character within the movie, let alone a lead character. Keegan-Michael Key specifically as Bumblebee. I think just him in general, I think Keegan-Michael Key only really works with the Key and Peele duo. Like him outside of Key and Peele, just he's a total character actor, which is cool. Like that's his thing. But like some of the stuff he was doing at Comic-Con where he led the whole freaking audience in like the Transformers theme song, I'm just like, dude, this is like the epitome of like some political cringe.
Yeah, that's what I.
Oh
I think we saw the same video. I saw it and I was like, this isn't. You're making me hate my fandom's theme song. Don't do this. I feel like he just plays himself. Everything that he's in, he's kind of just the same character.
Right.
I kind of saw it with Toad and in the marketing for that when the Super Mario movie came out, and I kind of like the same effect goes with like big name actors such as like RDJ, I feel, or like Tom Cruise or The Rock, where they're just a face and they just play themselves in every single role that they're in. But I mean, I've heard that Bumblebee isn't as over the top as he's led out to be in the trailers, but it's not a good start. Like you're not reeling me in with all this comedy that you're showing me in the trailers.
Right. I'm hoping. I mean, I know for the trailer they're definitely trying to reel kids in, and I understand. Like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, as we've said over and over again, we have to remind ourselves this is a franchise made for children. This is not supposed to be like super hyper dark, like post-apocalyptic, Walking Dead, or anything like It's not supposed to be super grimdark, which there's a valid side of the fandom where it's like, yeah, we don't want something that's the worst parts of the Michael Bay films where they take itself too seriously. The color gradient is just turned all the way to like the tinted black portion or like the super, super dark color gradient that they use. But at the same time, like I don't want it to be like this overly kidified, overly campy sort of thing because it's supposed to balance between, yes, you're having these new fans of Transformers reeling into the fandom, but also having enough to like win over the longtime fans that have been there since G1 and people like us who didn't come in through the original series, but we still like treasure the franchise in our own way and have stuck with it through like the absolute worst parts of it. So again,
Exactly.
I'm staying cautiously optimistic, but we've been burned many times with this franchise before. So I think the best,
Yeah.
like you said, no expectations.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like we always say, this is a kids fandom. This is a fandom to sell plastic toys. It's not going to be about us all the time. I mean, I'm like in my mid 20s. Paul's in his like mid 40s, mid 50s. So obviously they're not trying to appeal to
Watch it.
this guy too.
Watch it. Just because I have a little bit of gray hair in my beard now does not mean I am like quasi boomer. I am so far from that. This is brought to you by the Band Hammer. This is also going to be Danny's last podcast. I'm getting some in there. I'm just hitting up Thew Adams. He's going to be the next co-host. So like, happy trails, motherfucker. You're gone.
New co-host application. I'm gonna just apply with a different email.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be like www like I will simp for kissplayers.net.
Nice try. I'm the one who edits these things.
So getting on
But
to some other stuff in the
yeah.
news. We have a couple of things in the toy realm of stuff that I want to talk about just very, very briefly. I know that some of the toy discussion on some of the other fandoms as well as Instagram have just been lining up about this. There's two different collaborative figures that were released. Actually, three different collaborative figures.
Yep.
The first one I want to talk about, probably the one I'm more excited about, is the three-way crossover that we have. So it's Transformers, Diaclone, and Zoids, with Optimus Prime transforming into the Shield Liger from Zoid's Chaotic Century. I don't know if you were around or cognizant enough to remember like the Zoids craze in the early to mid 2000s, but
I
I'm a little
kind of remember it. Like when I saw this reveal, it kind of like struck something in me that I was like, wait, this looks familiar, but I don't know what the hell this is. So
yeah.
this is definitely your territory.
It is. So this is like Toonami right after school or like right before school. I want to say like 2002, 2003, 2004. Definitely like the tail end of like elementary school, maybe the beginning of middle school. But Zoids were kind of a bigger deal in like the early to mid 2000s, definitely before the live action movie. So seeing this, I'm like, okay, yeah, there's definitely like retool and redeco potential. For those of you that are Zoids fans, it's the Shield Liger, so like big blue robotic like saber-toothed tiger sort of a Zoid. But it could also be retooled into Blade Liger, maybe Liger Zero from the mainstream or regular Zoid series or whatever. The point is, it's a giant blue lion that transforms into Optimus Prime. But the way that it's a Diaclone crossover, Danny, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Diaclone relaunch that they did a few years back, where it's like they're kind of reviving the old concept of the robots being more piloted mechs as opposed to being individual transformers. And these are like the super, super expensive, like $300, $400, $500 plus like modulating sets where there's like 16 different configurations or whatever. And that's the kind of aesthetic they're going for. So it's like the more like Diaclone reboot battle convoy kind of look for Optimus Prime, but still lean a little bit more into the Transformers brand proper, so it doesn't look like Optimus Prime adjacent. It looks more proper Optimus Prime. That's the one that I'm really cool about. I'm not sure if you had any more thoughts on that.
I don't know, because when I woke up like around. I don't remember when this released. Maybe I saw a leaked picture, but I woke up around 7,
Yeah.
and I opened up Instagram, just out of habit, and I saw this pop up on my feed, and I was like, "What? What is?" And passed out again. I thought it was like a fever dream. I was like, "This looks like a knockoff." But going into it and not knowing what it was, I haven't been on my phone really all day. Um, I mean, I do like the Diaclone aesthetic that is given to this, and I love how it's not. This isn't Optimus Prime. This is just an Optimus Prime kind of inspired mecha suit. And I mean, I'm probably not gonna pick this up. It's not really for me. I feel like I couldn't really appreciate it. But I mean, I like it. I don't know what the MSRP is on this though.
That's the thing I'm worried about. If it's reasonable, if it's like under 100, I would at least consider it. But I would be more interested in like a Blade Liger redeco or retool or whatever. But
Mhm.
like you said, depending upon the price, maybe I'll look at it. But the news that absolutely set the whole fandom on fire was the second
Ugh.
pairing of reveals. For those of you that are just listening in and aren't familiar, it is the Transformers Godzilla crossover pairing. So it's not only Megatron, and I will use this as loosely as I possibly can, Megatron, close quote. It's also Optimus Prime, but the Optimus Prime that we have is a redeco of the Legacy Laser G2 Optimus Prime in a very like dull, like almost all gray, like not even kidding, all gray robot mode. And the vehicle mode's like it reminds me of like one of those newer generation Pokemon, or like the way that the color gray, blue, black, white, or whatever. It's very pixelated looking. And I get it. It's supposed to be like some sort of like contamination or fluid truck or whatever. But the Megatron version, it's just like Studio Series 86 Grimlock with a bit of like clear plastic on the back, so it looks like Godzilla's tail fins or whatever are glowing, with a new robot mode head. It's just black Grimlock with Megatron's head. No other retools, and it brought me back to that conversation we were having on the HasLab episode that we did, where it was like, hey, what would Deathsaurus look like if he was just a redeco or retooling of the SS86 Grimlock mold? I'm just like, thank goodness we had HasLab, because if it didn't, gonna be honest, this would look really shitty. And this is kind of that. It's kind of coming from the same line of thinking. Like this looks really terrible, and I'm definitely
Yeah.
not getting it. But I can understand why the internet would be just like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I saw this and I thought I was getting pranked because the least you could have done was probably just giving him a new head for the dynamo. Like, I get you want to market your collaborative series with the two most recognizable phases of the brand, understandable, but you could have given us something that emulates Godzilla more in the dino mode, since that's what a lot of people are probably going to do, and that's what a lot of people would probably want to do and expect to be doing when they're getting a Godzilla figure. The
Yeah.
Optimus Prime, I'm just like, I'm kind of getting tired of this mold already. This is the new Earthrise Prime mold, basically, for the last 3-4 years.
It is, and I like the legacy mold, the legacy G2 Prime mold. We've gone
Yeah.
over this before. There's the original one's great. I personally like the way that the Target one looks, just with the color layout. But I understand why people are tired of it. We've seen the whole thing before. Hasbro was getting a little lazy with just saying, "Oh yeah, if you just squint a little bit because it's an upright T-Rex, it'll be Godzilla." I'm like, no. How many times have we had the Studio Series 86 Grimlock mold released now? We have the original, we have the G2
Hmm.
version, we have the Shattered Glass one, we have an upcoming reissue of it, we have another. I'm not sure if it's
Comic.
going to be. We have the comic one, and then we have the one that's going to be in 2025. Which, when they say G2 Grimlock, I'm not sure if it's a reissue of like the Tiger Stripe one from Walmart from last year, or if it's like the proper blue, like original G2 Grimlock. So even still,
Hmm.
just how many times this mold has been released? Like, you can't give us a little bit of engineering and retooling just to make it look more like Godzilla than Black Grimlock. It's like, guys, it's just I love Hasbro. You guys have given us a lot of good stuff over the years, but some of your release choices are just whack, and this is one of them.
And I mean, especially with the robot mode, you want it to be Megatron. Make it feel like Megatron. Give us like a fusion cannon. Like you don't have to resculpt it. You want to go for a Megatron feel. Just pack in that little Earthrise cannon with it, just so you like commit to it.
Or at the very least, give him like even like Grimlock's sword from SS86 Swoop, or like some other repurposed Dinobot sword where it looks kind of like the original toy accurate sword that Megatron had back in the day. Something analogous to that. That's more like, okay, it's not just black Grimlock with Megatron's head. The collaborative line in general has just been a major coin toss. There's some ones that are really good. Like I'm personally, because I'm a big horror fan, I love the more like old Universal Monsters ones. So Frankentron and Dracula's were really good. Personally, I would love to see more of that, like the Wolfman, Creature of the Black Lagoon, Phantom of the Opera, something more along those lines. The Mummy would be even great.
Yeah, of course.
And some of them, I'm like, the Jurassic Park ones look kind of shit, to be honest.
Did I tell you that story about so you know how the whole thing with the first collab with the Jurassic Park team was the T-Rex and the JP-93 that everybody thought was gonna be skids?
Yep.
You know how it was like $120, and then it got clearance for like 90, and then 70, and then 50, and nobody got it.
What did you buy it for?
Well, I bought the T-Rex for $5 out of a Ziploc bag at a con.
I still feel like you owe it.
Nah, that's definitely the kind of, well, now that I'm saying it, like I don't know what the kind of incentive to get that 2-pack was. The shitty car or the T-Rex. I would say the T-Rex, right?
I'm still seeing that set at MSRP on some shops that are like they're more obscure, like online retailers, and some of the geek shops back in Virginia, where I'm from, when I go visit my parents, they're still trying to sell those. I'm like, dude, nobody is paying the MSRP, let alone your comic book store markup. That's utterly
ridiculous. Nobody wants it.
Utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. But yeah, Grimlock or Megatron or whatever the hell, quote unquote Godzilla. No.
Megalock.
No. Megalock.
I forgot it was a Godzilla figure, and I'm looking at it right now.
It's not even Godzilla. It's more like Satanzilla, and it's just like the worst Satanzilla ever. Just so bad. So bad. I think that was it for news as far as any like real attention worthy stuff. The rest of it's been pretty standard for the week.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything crazy. I'm even looking now. No, I think that's it for the news. Do you have any moving on to our favorite segment. I know you love to overcompensate. Do you have any pickups for this week?
This is a Cybertron City first. I am barren this week.
Whoa! Oh, damn. So it's just going to be me this segment.
It's just going to be you. This is all you. I'm turning
a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. I got my hands on the new Legacy United. Not new, but this year's Legacy United Magmatron. And I think it's the first commander I've seen on store shelves since Skylinks. And I couldn't help but just pick him up this time. Like I've seen him at like once or twice, but this week I was like, you know what? Let me treat myself. Like I deserve it, and I have not touched him since. I haven't touched him in like 3 days, 4 days. He's just on my desk.
Did the magic fade that quickly?
No, it's just I haven't had the time. I haven't had the time or the motivation, and guess what? Not gonna touch him today either.
My boy's out here grinding.
But he's just such a solid, massive figure. I don't even know if he is a combiner, but I don't want to label him as a combiner. But
he's like a
combiner. Yeah, it's a solid, like really fun combiner that I'm not afraid to mess with. not afraid that his legs are gonna go limp, or he's not gonna be able to hold something in his hand. He's not gonna be able to hold his swords, his little daggers. He's huge. He's solid. I could feel that this was kind of like a passion project for the people who worked on it.
It was definitely an out of left field combiner, which I understand they're trying to like encapsulate, and they're doing a really good job at this. They're trying to encapsulate the full 40-year history of the brand, and I think
Mm-hmm.
Magnetron was definitely, like you said, a very out there and left field choice, especially with we have Motormaster being G1, and we're starting to get to the combiner territory that'll be revisited next year. And then you dip into Armada with Optimus Prime, but like it's Optimus Prime. Like Optimus Prime is always going to sell, even if it's a crappy figure, which it wasn't. It's probably my favorite Optimus Prime that we've had since the whole Generations reset that they did in 2018, 2019 with Siege. Like that Armada Optimus Prime, Legacy Evolution Armada Optimus Prime is my favorite Optimus Prime to date. We'll see how Studio Series 86 measures up, but of this new aesthetic, that figure's my favorite. I'm actually looking at him right now. And then with Magmatron, I like him. I wasn't prepared with just how beefy and massive and just solid he is. And the transformation and just integrating everything and making sure that all the pieces are all like correct and oriented right. I wasn't prepared for how complex he was, and like even when I'm transforming him back into his 3 different dinosaur modes, he's still complex and still challenging, but fun, especially in like that big kid way.
Yeah, there's nothing better than holding a big toy in your hands. I haven't gotten the damn. I'm gonna upset a lot of paleontologists. Is it a Giganotosaurus that he turns into?
Well, there's 3. The
Yeah.
Skysaurus is the Quetzalcoatlus. Quetzalcoatlus.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm saying
Yes.
that right.
You just pissed people
Quetzalcoatlus.
off.
There we
You get
go.
him. Oh
Then
no, wait. Quetzalcoatlus. There you go. How about that?
Quetzalcoatlus. You got Wikipedia in front of you, don't you?
No, I don't. But I am looking at Magmatron.
Quetzalcoatlus. That one. Hippopotamus. Quetzalcoatlus. That one. We're going to go with that one. Then we have the Caesaurus is Elasmosaurus. I know that, which is technically a plesiosaur, but not really. It's like a separate spin-off or whatever. And then you're right. The Giganosaurus is the blue T-Rex. That's not a T-Rex, but Giganosaurus one.
Yeah, I can't get for the life of me. I can't have the tabs on the bottom kind of like hold the sword, like the little hilt that kind of goes on his stomach. I can't tab that incorrectly. Maybe I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, it's the weird plastic. It's just like bendy because God forbid we can't have little Timmy poke his eye out.
Jesus Christ, Timmy. The demographic. I hate the demographic for this one. But
God damn it, Timmy.
damn, what I was gonna say. All right, whatever. The main topic for today. I know last week we did the our top 5, in our opinion, fails that the brand has had as a whole. We have the part 2 come right now, the one we're doing, which is going to be the top 5 successes that we feel the brand has given us, kind of throughout history, right? Since G1, is that how far we're going back?
Yeah, we're going all the way back to the beginning. This is, again, the 40th year of Transformers, so I wanted to make this like last episode. So if you haven't watched the 5 fails, go ahead and listen to it on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this podcast by now. If we're expanded to other platforms and you're listening to this in the far land of the future. But yes, I wanted to balance out a podcast that is full of like slamming Hasbro and Takara as much as possible with one that's like saying, okay, guys, you guys had something going where you're keeping this brand going for 4 decades plus. So the very first thing I wanted to go to is just the existence of the brand itself, and taking something that's like the very first thing that I would love to do is just have an acknowledgement that this franchise has lasted as long as it did, and taking the concept of transforming robots, which is so ubiquitous throughout Japanese toy culture, and turning it into something that's uniquely American in its own storytelling. So you take the Japanese toy engineering these designs that harken back to aspects of samurai Japan or just warrior culture within Transformers, within just Japanese history itself. And you're bringing it with very American comic book, Marvel comic inspired, or even just like Saturday morning cartoon style storytelling. And you're making something that's truly multicultural. So even among some like the more classic cartoons or classic like superhero characters back in the day, or you're having something more like G.I. Joe, which is your typical like rah rah go military sort of franchise, which was emulated in other franchises back in the 80s, like Mask, um, Action Man, Micronauts, stuff like that. Transformers, even today, like the concept of it really stands apart on its own. Whereas, like, unlike other mecha series, you have like Gundam, Evangelion, series like that. They're very much so robots as opposed to sentient, intelligent
Characters.
their own characters. And it lasted that long. It's a brand that's able to reinvent itself over the years, and for one reason or another, through the great series and the really bad ones, it stood the test of time. So I think it's just a testament to the idea and getting that execution off the ground. So it's that in itself deserves a bit of an acknowledgement.
Yeah, their ability to adapt to really whatever the situation is in the market, because you see it with Beast Wars and you see it with Armada making that shift. And I mean, Beast Wars was kind of like the revival of the brand, and then Armada, I feel like, was one of those first big steps to like, let's catch up to what's cool now. You had, I mean, there's been people in the fandom who have also mentioned or have made this comparison with like Pokemon, and
Yes.
gotta catch them all. Like that was the whole idea. That was the and and that was the pitch. Like you had to catch every single one. You had kids trying to go crazy, bothering their parents, bugging their parents every single week to go to the toy store, and then Armada coming in, and now you got to catch all the mini cons. So Megatron doesn't get to them, or if you're a Megatron fan, so Optimus doesn't get to them, and just adapting like that, right under our noses without us like noticing, it, like you said, is pretty worthy of acknowledgement.
Yeah, especially as someone that grew up with Armada, I appreciate the gotta catch them all thing. The mini cons were, oh my goodness, they were so great. And I really hope that Hasbro was able to get that gimmick back off the ground. They teased us with Power Links Hotshot, they teased us with Shattered Glass Whisper. I hope like crazy that when Armada Wheeljack comes out next year or December or whenever Legacy United Wave 5 comes out, he comes with Wind Shear. Because if he doesn't, there's going to be some hurt coming. I'm just saying, Hasbro, make that happen. Danny, what about you? What is your first big success that you want to note of the Transformers brand?
I know I kind of bash this kind of side of the fandom more often than you do, but I want to say, like, to start off, the 2007 movie.
Yes.
I I loved it as a kid. I mean, we've spoken about how I got introduced to the fandom, and then thought that the 2007 movie was catered specifically to me, and pairing with my favorite band at the time. I was over the moon when this movie came out, and I was just a drop in the bucket because it made it so mainstream to everybody in the world. It got so many people into Transformers or back into Transformers who grew up with the 86 movie, who probably outgrew it because it was a silly cartoon. Now is a big blockbuster hit that their kids wanted to see, and then they ended up falling back in love with it. I've always said that we don't make the majority ticket sales. Me, you, hundreds of people here in New York, thousands, millions of people. We're not the majority kind of vote, you could say, into let's get a sequel, let's get a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
That comes from the people who walk by the movie theater, who walk by some posters, or waiting for the bus and see an ad on the MTA little like bus stop. those are the people you want to cater to, and they did it so well that we got 5 movies, all varying in quality, but they were made mainstream by Michael Bay. And as much as I don't like the kind of violent and lack of character arcs that these movies have, I'm grateful that it brought it back to the forefront of like pop culture.
I agree. Um, as I mentioned on our fails episode, the 2008 writer strike killed the live action franchise, and unless it really leans into the G1 territory, like what Bumblebee did, which wasn't a direct redo of G1, but had a lot of like the same notes, very reliant on 80s nostalgia. Um, the rest of that franchise just collapsed entirely. Rise of the Beast definitely had a bit more mojo to it than the last 4 Michael Bay films. I did like Dark of the Moon, but like you said, TF 2007, it was not just a watershed moment for the franchise. It was a watershed moment for the 2000s in pop culture. Like, everybody was talking about the film. It was groundbreaking in terms of visual effects. Everyone talked about it. Megan Fox, of course. But even today, I think it's one of the better movies of Shia LaBeouf's career. We can talk about that some other time, but just the feeling that you would have of like seeing Bumblebee, a character that a lot of Transformers fans who weren't fans of the 80s cartoon didn't know. So it was like a reintroduction of him to the general public, seeing just how much personality he had, how much of like, both kind and caring, but also a bit of a smartass and a dick when he wanted to be. Seeing him like really engage the audience, and you got a sense of how the robots were. And then, of course, seeing Optimus Prime transform on screen in that alleyway for the very first time, and hear Peter Cullen reprising him for the first time since the G1 cartoon. Magic. Like, just that movie, no matter what you think of it, especially that first film, that is like we're talking about here, top 5 moment in the franchise history. You cannot understate the importance of that film. Absolutely, like,
Yeah.
magic piece of fiction.
And it's even coming from me, who's like, I'm not a big kind of like Michael Bay universe type of guy, but I recognize that he did give us that boost that we needed to be taken a bit more seriously.
Yeah. There's a lot of the movie designs that I'm like, about, but I'm gonna say something right now. Michael Bay, the original 3 movies design of Optimus Prime is top 3.
4 and 5, garbage. I hate that.
Yeah.
I
The,
hate that night design.
it has its place. Shout out to Schmoptimus Prime on Instagram, one of my Instagram buddies. I know his like bread and butter is that design. He absolutely loves it. But
I'm gonna DM him right now. I got him too.
the first 3 films, Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, especially the Dark of the Moon design, where he has like the abs and whatnot, one of my top
Oof.
3 Optimus Prime
Mm-hmm.
ever. That design is freaking iconic. I would say in some ways for a lot of Transformers fans, that design is more iconic than G1. For a
Don't like
lot.
that you said that. I'm gonna try to ignore that you said that.
No, for a lot of fans, that's true. I think it's a more heroic look. I love the G1 look. That's also like number 1. You can't dethrone that. But for a number 2 design, like, it's hard to argue against that being number
All right,
2.
I'll take number 2. I'll take number
Okay.
2.
Let's see.
But yeah,
Going off of what you said as far as like other versions of the franchise, I think we can't have an honest conversation about injecting life into the franchise without talking about Beast Wars and giving it its due.
oh, you gotta cross that off my list now.
Well, 2 for 1. Here we go.
Yeah, I texted you that too before.
Yeah, Beast Wars was the first and really only time in Transformers history where they really flipped the script and did everything new, brand new characters, brand new look, CGI that, even though some of it's a little painful to look at today, for the time it was very groundbreaking to go from like 2D animation and recycling and reusing the G1 look as much as they possibly could, and just going full ham, completely new. It was great. It was a great success. And before the 2007 movie, it was the shot of adrenaline in the arm that the franchise needed, and they absolutely delivered on it. For a lot of fans, best Megatron interpretation ever. I'll give it its respect. It's not my favorite interpretation of Megatron, but it's pretty darn close. Shout out to Gary Chalk and David Kay for their spectacular work as Primal and Megatron. Just the performances and the way they play off of each other, phenomenal. And some of those old toys from Beast Wars still hold up a bit, because by the time that Beast Wars came around, there was definitely a step up in terms of articulation and play value. And even holding something like that original Ultra Class Optimus Primal, yes, it was simplistic. Yes, the engineering is very dated, but you could have like still fun with it as a kid and be like, okay, it's not quite this like hyper articulated figure that we're used to today, but you can pose it. Like what the figure could do on television wasn't so far away and so much of a reach as what it could do as a toy.
And they love their ball joints.
Yes, we still love our ball joints here. They were maybe a little bit more durable and rigorous back in the day.
Oh, 100%. But yeah, especially after coming out of like the dark ages of like Action Masters, they needed that kind of like kick in the ass just to like figure it out, figure something out. Something that was different, something that wasn't repackaged or kind of repainted into shoddy, weird Crayola colors.
Yeah. There was only so much that they could do for the original figure, or not the original figure, the original series, where it's like, it definitely needed a bit of a rest period before they could really and truly go hard on the 80s nostalgia, which they were eventually able to. But Beast Wars was the right series for the right time, and without Beast Wars, I don't think we would be talking about the brand as we are today. It needed something fresh, and I still think we're at a time in Transformers where we have enough of like, the Optimus Prime, Megatron, the same old core characters we've had, that we could still have something that's adjacent to those characters and have them appear every now and then, but have a truly like rock solid core team of Transformers without a lot of human reliance. I'm looking at you, Earthspark, that introduce a lot of like, as far as what we need, a strong robot centric series. Maybe have humans as like a background sort of accessory, but not the main like kid appeal thing. I'm a big believer in that you don't need human characters to make a successful Transformers story. Beast Wars is proof of that. Transformers Animated is proof of that. You can have them as like I said, you can have them as accessories or plot devices or background supporting characters, but the focus of the series should always, 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 always be the robots.
Yeah, we fell in love with the robots. We never like we're fans of the robots, so we're here. I don't understand the whole push for humans all the time.
I want a transforming Miko action figure, said nobody ever.
Yeah, even the Noah. And the Noah never sold. Well, apparently, because I never got one.
Yeah.
And there's someone in store, but apparently a lot of people were saying that it was shelf warming where they were.
Oh, I never saw it in the store ever, so I'm guessing at least in Brooklyn. I mean, again, Rise of the Beast was a Brooklyn thing. I guess it was flying off the shelves there, but not where I'm at.
Me neither.
What else did you want to talk about for a great success?
I want
Beast Wars Thunder.
Yeah, let's keep it on the media kind of side since I don't have Beast Wars to talk about no more. But originally I had written down over here on my notes the War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron video games, but I think I'd like to extend it to the aligned continuity. And I know we all know I have my qualms with Transformers Prime, and I try to keep it at arm's length, but. I'm not the biggest fan. It's kind of the same feeling with the live action Michael Bay movies that
dogpile him now.
I'm not a fan of the Transformers Prime cartoon. Like, I, not to say that I don't enjoy some episodes. I do enjoy some episodes that has some good story beats where I'm like, oh shit, you know. There's also some and most where I kind of cringe and I'm like, he's saying this thing again, and oh whoa, like it's their last stand again for the fifth time this season, especially when they say it out loud. But altogether, the fall of Cybertron video games and not talking about Darkspark, I feel like did so much for a lot of people where you had everybody involved. You had the gamers involved. You had the uh the kids at home watching Saturday morning shows, watching Transformers Prime. You had the sister series rescue bots that came out of it. So you were hitting the younger demographic too. And props to the line continuity for going so far and going for so long that it sparked like a whole like new generation of fans to come in. And as much as RID 2015 is hated by me, and a lot of fans too probably listening to this, it kept that line continuity going and Rescue Bots even ending. I forget when, couple of years back. That's the longest running show. A line continuity did so much for a lot of people, and got everybody from like every corner of the fandom involved. I enjoyed the games and play them over and over and over. I would delete my history and just start up again like it was my first time playing it. And I'm not much of a gamer, and those are really the only games I would consistently play. Even back then, when I was 12, 13, it was my first game that I bought with my own money.
Those games were fun. It's a shame that I think they were talking about this earlier when the Gamer Edition figures first came out, that there's some deleted files that Activision, I mean, again, go figure, it's Activision, they lost the gaming files. So whether or not there's going to be a true re-release of those games at some point, that's kind of a mystery. But I agree
Mm-hmm.
with you. When those games first came out, I loved the aesthetic. I loved all the different glowy bits that all the robots had on them.
Yeah.
And this was right around the time where Tron Legacy, I think, came out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a callback to that movie too. It was very like early 2010s. Loved it. Um, and I'm happy now that we have the Gamer Edition figures that are like not only just a one-off Optimus Prime Megatron 2-pack, but are now becoming a fully realized subline within Studio Series. So the fact that all this time later we're getting a lot of love for that series just brings me back to playing, like you had said, playing those games for hours and hours and hours. With Fall of Cybertron, I remember like finally getting Grimlock and finally getting the ability to like play as Bruticus
Mm-hmm.
as well. Those two were like the highlight of those games for me. Just like going around, causing chaos, mayhem, fighting. What was it? Fighting Omega Supreme. I think at one point,
Yeah,
unless
Mega,
I'm mistaken. Um,
Triptych, all those guys.
Absolutely wild. Love the games. Love the voice acting. Not too dark, although those figures did have a very dark color gradient to them, but phenomenal, wild games. And as you said, the whole Align continuity, even though highly flawed, very inconsistent with its aesthetic and execution, and inconsistent with its execution, and in terms of its tone, wasn't consistent between War for Cybertron and Prime, and the big change that we saw between Prime and RID 2015. The fact that Hasbro wanted to have a multimedia project last that long is great. And I hope in the future that Hasbro is able to do something like that. Whether it's some
Yeah,
sort of like like a true G1 sequel series, and like where it picks up the baton after the series and carries forward, that would be cool. Like you're familiar with X-Men 97, right?
yeah,
Something like that would pick up, like, ignore the rebirth, but pick up immediately after the events of season 3 and have like another splinter continuity with G1, if that would be the premise of the new series, or just something that like fans can really sink their teeth into and like grow and get to know the characters instead of rebooting the series like every other couple of years or so.
yeah. No, I definitely like to see something like that. I want them to take these risks and be ambitious with the stories you're telling. Don't try not to, start a multimedia project with the intent of finishing it and expanding it, not give me something as a placeholder till the next big thing comes out.
Yeah. I say that as an RID 2015 or RID 2001 fan, which was very much a placeholder, but that series holds a very, very fine place in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
My next success, we're going to keep with media, and I'm going to pivot more towards the comics. IDW. Speaking of a series that had just gone on for such a long time, 13 years from 2005 until 2018, with multiple different creators and a lot of ups and downs, peaks and valleys in terms of the quality of the storytelling and the art. But the fact that they had one ongoing continuity for that long, for like a more mature and, I don't want to say experienced, but definitely a Transformers fan that's more engulfed in the sense of what Transformers is and wants something that's a little bit more, something a little bit more that you can chew on than like a Saturday morning kids cartoon or a blockbuster film. I'm looking at my comic shelf right now, and every hardcover from the IDW universe that's out right now. Shout out to you, Image. Hopefully, you can finish those hardcovers. But I'm looking at them. I'm about no. I'm at this point. I'm done with reading Phase 1. I'm about to read Phase 2, just as it's starting to get into like the Eisner Award winning territory. But the fact that Hasbro was able to, or Hasbro and IDW and all the different creators and artists were able to do something like that and truly say goodbye to the universe instead of just doing what a lot of comic book stories do. It kind of like peters out towards the end and just they tie it together really hastily. Um, 13 years. That's a very impossible feat to do with
Yeah.
anything in comics, and to have a definite ending instead of just endlessly rebooting it and the good guys always come out on top and there's always this like overly complicated, very comic book movie style, you know, wrap up to the universe until the next big thing happens. The fact they were able to end it was so great, and it's a complete story and you don't have to reference anything else. And it gave us so many great new characters too. Gave us Tarn, gave us characters like Nautica, gave us an awesome
Run.
version of
Yeah.
Rodimus and Ultra Magnus, some great interpretations of Prime and Megatron over the years. In my opinion, one of the best Optimus Prime interpretations.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Megatron becoming an Autobot, the entire Lost Light story, perfect, loved it. And even Galvatron being a separate character from Megatron. Just that idea hadn't really been done to that extent before. It happened in the Marvel comics, but like to really see Galvatron flushed out as a proper character instead of just this traveling madman, great. Loved IDW.
I love those interpretations of Galvatron and Megatron. Megatron especially because it's not done as like a gimmick to reel people into reading the comics. It's like, no, this is what we're doing. He's an Autobot now, and we're committing to it. There's going to be no treachery. There's not going to be a twist. It's just this is who he is now. And they ran with it. One of my favorite like interpretations of Megatron out there.
When the world sees you as a monster, who cares? What do they know? But when you think of yourself as a monster, I'm paraphrasing here, but like just that
Oh yeah, no, you're killing it.
That dialogue between Megatron and Ravage in More Than Meets the Eye, one of the best all-time Megatron speeches ever. And you can, and like you said, you can tell when the change of heart happens, he means it. It's not a gimmick. It's very consistent with his overall character. In terms of Megatrons ever, that is the best Megatron. IDW Megatron is the GOAT. Because you see a true evolution of the character. You know, he's not just like, yes, I'm going to rub my fingers together and take over Cybertron. Mwah, ha, 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 ha. Or I'm going to get, like, imprisoned at the end because Optimus Prime beat me. You get to see him truly evolve from, like, this oppressed miner to this tyrant, to this military leader, and then eventually start questioning, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. And there, well, maybe I was wrong before, but yeah, there is the twist of the in the Megatron story where he figures out that, hey, wait, I haven't been being poisoned. Optimus isn't playing a trick on me. He's not holding me down. He's not trying to control me. This is actually who I am now. The twist is in the opposite direction that you would think of. Instead of I can't believe you betrayed them, it's I can't believe this is true. We're there with Ravage in those few panels going, holy shit.
Yeah, it's not a joke. This is who you are now. Galvatron's
Mm-hmm.
just a facsimile. He's a placeholder. Just say the word and he's gone. He's like, nah, continue on without him. And what I love about that speech is just how enraged he gets at Galvatron being his successor. And he's just like, if you guys want him, sure, whatever. No, but what about all that you said? He's like, oh yeah, peace through strength, everything like that, blah blah blah, all that Decepticon.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you really see him finally, and I wish more politicians were like this in real life. He's finally sobered up off the Kool-Aid. I think anybody who's truly had a change of heart, no matter what it's about, and you can really earnestly look at your past self and be like, what the hell was I thinking? It doesn't happen a lot, but I think with rare, it happens very, very rarely. But if a person truly has that inner capacity to change and they want to change, they can do it, even if they are a bloodthirsty, like murdering galactic tyrant like Megatron. The morality. That's a discussion for another time. But IDW, in conclusion, we can talk about that all day. I'm probably sure we will at some point. But beautiful, beautiful success for Transformers. Your turn. What else did you think was a big success you wanted to talk about?
I could go on for hours about media and the best and the worst, but you know what I could go on for days for is the bread and butter of the Studio Series line. All
Which
branches of it, the regular kind of how it started out as the Bayformers and how they kicked it off. They started it all off, and the Studio Series '86 and how they were kind of passed the baton and kind of going on with the concept art series and the gamer edition figures. I feel like I'd say how many have been released? 112 at this point? 13?
it'll be 114 with the TF1 Megatron, excluding
Mhm.
SS86 and excluding the Gamer Edition figures.
Yeah, I feel like, say, out of all those releases, maybe about 80 of them have just been like just love letters to these characters. They're just the the best iterations of these guys that you could have as a fan or as a toy enthusiast, as a distinguished adult collector, as we like to think we are. Um, I can't get enough of them. I'm always excited for these releases. They kind of learned from their mistakes from the Power to Primes trilogy and how the quality of the figures was dropping, and I guess they wanted to you know put their big boy pants on and kind of just have everything under one banner, and sticking to it has really kind of helped. Not kind of helped, has incredibly helped the Studio Series line and has kept most fans just coming back for more. And just like I said, every single figure being a love letter to that character or the people who love those characters is what keeps people like me around. And I'm sure that's why you like buying toys too. So I definitely want to hear your opinion on
I mean, do I like them or do I have a problem with them? I'm kind of leaving it up to the viewers here. Let us know in the comments. Is it an addiction? Is it plastic crack? I think so. Um, I like the Studio Series a lot too. I feel like it didn't really find itself properly until like 2020, 2021, like once Studio
that.
Series 86 came into it, because there's a definite difference between like a Studio Series figure that came out in 2018 that was like, okay, it would be like the 77 Camaro Bumblebee from the Bay films, which is like, okay, it's accurate-ish enough, but the posability quite isn't there. or the materials would just pop out all over the place, or there would be a lot of restrictions on what's supposed to be a modern figure versus like 2020, 2021. They were getting more into the Bumblebee movie stuff. By that point, the 86 figures were coming in. Even with the live action figures, they were starting to get a little bit more in their footing with more solid engineering techniques, as opposed to like the more brittle, more frail plastic, or just
Mm-hmm.
or just engineering that wasn't sandwiching a lot of panels and stuff together. Because when I'm looking back on some of those reissues that they're doing with like those anniversary packs and such, if you look at like Studio Series Ratchet from like Dark of the Moon or the Transformers first movie, and then even if you look at something like Studio Series 44 with Jetwing Optimus Prime, just in that like year and a half gap, you're already seeing an improvement in quality. And now it's like, well, shit, if you're going to look at Dark of the Moon Q next year, and I'm going to have him next to like Crowbar and Crankcase, both from Dark of the Moon, it's going to be like, wow, the disparity between these two is going to be huge. But even when you're introducing, like you said, you have the concept art figures, you have the Bumblebee movie figures, and just figures that lend themselves to more stable and more just structurally sound designs getting the Studio Series treatment. It's like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. These are the figures that I want, especially when you get figures from like the War for Cybertron trilogy, like Ultra Magnus or Optimus Prime or like Ironhide and Prowl, where they're like, yeah, the older versions were good, but they weren't quite there. And then either they're just redesigned from the ground up, or they're given like a size class bump to like the next best or next highest size class, where they can have that extra bit of engineering or extra bit of materials quality to really push them over the edge. Phenomenal. Like you're saying, some like the more definitive versions of those characters. And even if you take something like War for Cybertron Springer and just say, let's take what's working about this figure, tweak what isn't, bump him up a size class, and like just go all out and make him as best as we can. It's like, yeah, this is what we wanted as fans. We want the more accurate representations of the characters from the franchises we love, instead of just always being, well, what can we compromise or how can we twist it to fit in with a certain aesthetic, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But if you're going off the original material or the source material and you're trying to be as faithful as possible, you're probably going to please the most amount of fans.
Yeah, especially like you said, branching into the Studio Series 86 line, I feel like the argument was kind of being made that, oh, they're running out of characters to give us, or they don't want to give us Skids and Mudflap, and all those arguments everybody made back when, what, 2021, when they had just announced the first wave. uh I definitely think it gave them that much needed break of being held to the expectation of churning out Bayverse figures and rushing their production, especially after coming off of like a huge project like Devastator.
Yes.
Um, the 86 line, I feel, gave them that ability to, you know, get a breath of fresh air and be like, okay, like let's kind of redirect our attention to something else while another group of people take care of the Bayverse figures. Or if it's not going to be two groups, not going to be teams, let's take a break. Let's let's kind of get a couple waves out, and then we'll revisit the Bayverse movies. And we got hit with all these incredible Bumblebee movie figures, back to back. We got hit with like the Dark of the Moon Wreckers, and finishing off teams that they've given us back in like Studio Series, the early days, the 2019 days. The 86 line has been nothing but just mini masterpieces just down the line.
Yeah, we're getting our first two pack next year with Long Haul and Hook to finish out that Devastator that'll be coming down fully complete also by the end of next year, which I'm really looking forward
That's
to. But pivoting back to
that's
live action for just one more time, like you said, I feel like, or like we both talked about on this podcast, the early days of Studio Series, we had all of those Bayverse figures that were really just like being pumped out because there wasn't anything else that line was focusing on, a lot of those figures walked. So something like next year's leader class, Knight Optimus Prime from Age of Extinction, or even something like Rise of the Beast Optimus Primal. So those figures could run. Those figures could like really take everything that price point could offer at leader class, or even like the more upscale like deluxes that are going into Voyager class or whatever. Those figures are just so much more complete and accurate and just feel, as you said, like mini masterpieces. So very grateful for the engineering team to do what they do, which ties into my final success, which is just having a design team that really cares about this franchise. Because I can figure like designing toys for like an engineer, unless you're trying to like really go into this and make this your like career that you base, you know, your life off of, I can imagine for some people it's not like the thing they necessarily want to do with their life, or a lot of people like really aspire to. So when you do get a job working for Hasbro in like a franchise that has been around for such a long time, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars or Transformers or G.I. Joe, or not even within Hasbro, just toy design in general, if you have these fans that are really like dyed in the wool, true believers, super passionate about their project, and they understand not only what's necessary to make a good toy, but understand from our angle like what we're looking for in these great characters, especially ever since the Generations and Studio Series lines really reset themselves to this new collector oriented push towards figures and whatnot. Like we've gotten straight up successes. Yeah, there's been odd figures here and then, Legacy Skids mold, that are just straight trash. But
hey, it's all right. He's doing his best.
He's doing his best, but sometimes your best ain't good enough. Sometimes you still get swiped left, and Skids is a very swipe left kind of figure. But 95% of the time, 95% wins. Yeah, I think that's good too. And the fact that they really pick stuff from all different types of universes, like in 1 year, you can have figures that are coming from G1 and the Bay movies, and then you're also like, oh, we're going to give you IDW Tarn. Awesome. You want Prime Universe Thundertron? Awesome. You want RID 20 or 2001 Sideburn? We'll give it to you. You want the War for Cybertron stuff? Cool. You want to take War for Cybertron Optimus Prime and turn them into like IDW Orion packs? Bro, we got you. You want your Cannonball, even though it's from the trash Legacy Skids mold? We're going to
Okay, I will agree there.
We're going to make it good. It's going to be good.
I will agree with the Cannonball. I hate that. I hate that Cannonball figure.
But yeah, super grateful. Shout out to Mark, Evan, BMac, Sam. Shout out to Sam too on the Studio Series team, as we were just talking about. All y'all are great, and shout out to the crew over at Takara as well. Hasui-san, Tomo-san, Iwajima-san, all the rest of you guys over there, just stellar.
Japan, bro.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it all started. That's where all started, baby. Back in Japan. Thank you guys. Thank you, Thank you, design teams. Amazing. Please keep doing what you're doing. Don't lose your passion. We don't say it often enough in the fandom, but you guys are the reason that we keep being engaged so much with this franchise. We would have not lasted a fandom for 40 years if you guys were not there. So keep doing your thing. Please don't let up. We would love to be here another 40 years. Our wallets may hate us, but our hearts will be very filled with plastic.
Our walls, our rooms, our hands, everything. Our desks.
Yeah. Some trips out to Home Depot in the future for sure to build some shelves once I get my place.
I have to get a shelf soon, yeah. But I do have one last one I prepared just in case somebody was going to steal one of my ideas.
Guilty.
But I have kind of funny that this is my last one because everybody knows that this is like my original bread and butter. This is my comfort kind of food, for lack of better words. I wanted to say that as much as it's hated by a lot of people, not this specifically, but part of it, the Unicron trilogy brought in so many people of like my age, and so many people grew up watching these shows, Armada, and a little bit of Energon and a lot of Cybertron. You know, I woke up every single morning at like 6 in the morning, even when I didn't even have school, or when I had school, I wake up at 5 in the morning, catch a couple episodes, you know, going to school like kind of half asleep just because I wanted to see Optimus Prime on TV. This is more of a personal success that I feel Hasbro has, but it's a success that I feel and believe that stretches over smaller things like my feelings towards this. You know, the toys went freaking crazy. They were gimmick ridden from head to toe. You had insane combiners in Energon. You had huge gimmick based Minicom play sets in Armada, and you had the my favorite gimmick, the Cyberplanet Key gimmick, in Transformer Cybertron, aka Galaxy Force, and the designs went crazy. They did not hold back, and they introduced colony worlds and different ranks of leadership, and they introduced that there could be more than one prime around at a time, and there was just so much heart in those shows.
Shout out to Vector Prime, like one of the OGs of the
Mm-hmm.
Unicron trilogy. Just phenomenal character. I'm happy we got a representation of him in the version of him that I wanted. I didn't want no like weird ass Covenant of Primus, Golden Vector Prime. I don't want any of that. I want the like teal sword. Shame he didn't come with Safeguard. A little salty on that, but like overall execution, like pretty solid 7.5 out of 10. 7.5. He wasn't a retool. He had to knock off some points there, but like for what they did with him, not too bad, not shabby at all. But yeah, I agree. Armada, I'm more partial to just of my own childhood nostalgia, but Energon was a little rough. Energon was a little rough, but Cybertron definitely stuck the landing better than Energon ever could. Cyberplanet Keys, our worlds are definitely in danger, my friend.
You know, my favorite kind of like, other than I don't even know, it's neck and neck, honestly. It just depends what day of the week it is and how I'm feeling. You know, it's Gary Chalk's Optimus Prime and Transformer Cybertron, and Peter Cullen's iconic G1 Optimus Prime. I cannot decide for the life of me. You know, having met both voice actors, both of them are just such kind, pure people, and it's crazy that their their performances are the reasons why a lot of us are here.
Amen to that, my friend. I think that's going to be doing it for this episode. But leave a comment below. What do you guys think would be the 5 best? And if you have watched the previous episode, the 5 worst moments in Transformers 40 years. We're very curious. We covered a lot of ground today. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we call it quits. If you're watching this on YouTube, smash that like button, hit subscribe, leave a comment below. Again, what do you think the 5 best and worst moments in Transformers history are? If you're listening on Spotify, click those 3 little dots on the top of the Spotify account page. Leave us a 5-star review if you think we're worth it. And follow us on Instagram, both at Cybertron City Podcast, as well as me at Brooklyn Bots and Danny over at Matrix_Mez. Anything else for the people, my friend?
No, you cover it. You cover it to a T. Drop your comments, drop your opinions. I'd love to see people kind of interact, and whether they disagree or agree, or they find it crazy that Paul is 40 years old and Danny's a baby that grew up with Cybertron. You know, I love reading the comments.
He just shaved for the first time today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a round of applause. Shout out to Barbasol and Harry's Razors. Look at this.
Face is full of cuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Take it easy, guys.
Something. And like you said, too stoic in Transformers Prime. It's just like you have one emotion. And it's not like, you know, what makes Optimus Prime special isn't that he's always this brave and confident and kind of reserved character. It's that he's a they humanize him in such a way that we could relate to him. We could see his struggles. We could see how he deals with things, and stoic and courageous and being a leader is essentially who he is, but that's not all he is.